Eurobodalla 350 is part of a worldwide 350 group. We love our beautiful planet. We want to protect this. Again, it is not fair that Pacific Islanders and people in Bangladesh who have absolutely minuscule carbon footprints are in the front line of the damage from climate change. And we know what's happening, and we know it's happening here. We know it's happening in Australia, and we get a climate emergency, and there's a new level of bushfire alert in Australia now, catastrophic, that we didn't have before. We know what's happening, and we know what needs to be done. There isn't some fancy scientific cure that hasn't been invented, yet there is already solar power, wind power, hydro power, and ways to store all of this. So what we say is we take action. All of us are doing what we can to reduce our carbon footprints and encourage other people to do that. And we also demand action. We need to organise for change. We organise to change what the government is doing, what people are doing, what people support, and to demand a safe future. And we work with everyone, all groups, all parties, and that to try to achieve this. So we support the Climate Emergency Declaration because we know and we understand and we believe it's an emergency, and it has to be dealt with in that respect. And so we're really pleased that Steve has done this incredible 1,200-kilometre journey on a kayak to be with us today and to take the Climate Emergency Declaration petition to Canberra. So let's get with it. We know what to do.
Just before I introduce Lynn Smith, who will introduce Steve Posselt, you may have already heard through the grapevine that about an hour ago, our Eurobodalla Shire Council, thanks to a motion proposed by Pat McGinley of the Greens, have chosen to divest from fossil fuels. From 350 will introduce Steve Posselt, the Kayak for Earth adventurer and eco-warrior.
Hello everyone and welcome along here to Moruya today. We really appreciate everybody coming along. The numbers have been amazing. We're just so proud of everyone here in Moruya and the Eurobodalla that we could be represented with such a large group of people. My name is Lynn Smith. I've had a personal association with Steve now for a few years as a friend. I was going to be going over to Paris with him in 2015, but the unfortunate events at the end of that year prevented me from going, and it just didn't work out that way. But being able to be part of 350 Eurobodalla as one of the founding members has really made up for that. So my heart is in this. Climate Emergency Declaration and Mobilisation have asked if I could just read something out today. The Climate Emergency Declaration and Mobilisation is a coalition actually of so many groups, grassroots group, non-politically aligned in most cases, but I know we have some groups here today from the political factions and we really welcome them here today. It's just so good to see that all these grassroots groups are coming together all around Australia, and they've welcomed Steve passionately all the way down the coast on his way from Ballina. We know up in the Shoalhaven transition group were there to welcome him. I was in Sydney when he was welcomed by the Balmain and Rosedale Climate Change Action Group. So it's just been a phenomenal group of people that have come together from all walks of life to welcome Steve all his way. Now, I don't usually like reading things, and I brought my iPad to do it, but this is what I've just been asked if I could read this from the Climate Emergency. I'll just try and find it that I saved the words. Bear with me 1 second. It says Steve's connecting climate chaos to kayak odyssey is truly a mammoth endeavour, perhaps a little mad. But given the climate emergency, I have to wonder who is mad. Is it Steve, or is it our governments for failing to take the climate emergency seriously? Or is it all of us who are mad for allowing our government to ignore our welfare? Our governments continue to pander to fossil fuel interests, and every day that they continue to do this, they are putting us all in peril. Already climate impacts are killing people and damaging ecosystems. Enough is enough. I guess know that. It's about demanding what has now been necessary for all of us to protect. For too long now, we have been limiting our climate demands to what we think is politically impossible, but Australian carbon emissions are still on the rise. It's time to demand what is necessary and to work out how to make this possible. Big problems require big solutions. That is why we are demanding a declaration of climate emergency and a climate mobilisation at the speed and scale that is required to protect all people, species and ecosystems. When an emergency is declared, measures that otherwise might be politically impossible suddenly become possible. In times of war, nations throw business as usual out the window and throw everything they've got at tackling a threat to the well-being of their citizens. Our governments could and should do that again right now in response to the climate emergency. But it looks like they won't until we, the people, speak with one voice and demand that governments act in the best interests of all of us. The campaign is about changing the public conversation. It's about changing public perception. That is what about is reasonable, what is necessary and what is possible. It's about making the demand for a climate emergency declaration just as familiar and just as reasonable as the demands for the abolition of slavery or the demands for marriage equality. We and our governments already know what we need to do and restore a safe climate. We want people to stop thinking that dealing with the climate emergency is too hard and to start thinking it is madness to continue to let our governments get away with weak policies that put us all in peril. Excuses don't cut it when lives are at stake. Thank you to Steve for being a little mad. Thank you to all of you for being here today and supporting Steve and the Climate Emergency Declaration petition. Every time you ask someone to sign that petition, you are helping to grow the very reasonable demand that government implements all the solutions necessary to protect our future. Thank you from the Climate Emergency Declaration.